this time, before introducing the chair of the Session-1, I regret to announce that one of the speakers from this session, Mr. Malik, is unable to attend today. Now let me introduce Guinta Kreuter, Secretary General of IOI. He studied law and obtained a doctorate in law from the University of Graz. He started his career as legal officer in the local public administration. From 1991 to 2013, Guinta Kreuter was a member of the Austrian Parliament. As deputy chairman of the Committee on Constitutional Matters, he promoted citizens' freedom and human rights. Since 1st July 2013, Guinta Kreuter has been a member of the Austrian Ombudsman Board and also served as the Secretary General of the IOI. Would you please welcome him?
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues. I'm very happy to have the opportunity of moderating the first session today. My name is Guinta Kreuter. I'm the Austrian Ombudsman, and I have also been the acting General Secretary of the International Ombudsman Institute for exactly 1 year. But first of all, it's an honor for me too to congratulate the ACRC on its 20th anniversary. My best wishes for the future of this well-known, successful, and greatly respected organization. As we have already heard in the opening session, the role and the challenges of the Ombudsman institutions are changing and developing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's learn more about how ombuds institutions work in different world regions and how honorable representatives think concerning value creation for ombudsmen as a social capital and the development of society. Distinguished colleagues, now I would like to welcome the first speaker, Mr. Siracha Charenpanit. From the Office of the Ombudsman of Thailand, who is going to talk to us about ombudsman function to enhance social trust and quality of public service. Professor Charenpanit is one of the 3 ombudsmen of Thailand. Prior to becoming ombudsman in 2010, he served as Secretary General of the Office of the Ombudsman. Professor Charenpanit holds an LLB from Dharmasat University, as well as a master's degree in GD from Tulane University in the United States. Mr. Siracha Charenpanit, I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Dr. Guinta Kreuter, Secretary General of the IOI. Excellency, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm particularly honored to be here today at this important conference in Seoul. It also gives me a great pleasure to deliver a speech on ombudsman function to enhance social trust and quality of public service, which I hope that it will bring you some useful idea and understanding of the Thai ombudsman work in light of the social trust and public service. Before I discuss about this topic, please allow me to introduce to you the function and power of the Thai Ombudsman. The Thai Ombudsman is an independent constitutional organization, firstly established under the 1997 Constitution of Thailand to investigate complaints on maladministration and unfair practices of public authorities. Upon the political change in Thailand, which led to a proclamation of the 2007 Constitution, the Ombudsman, however, has been given an additional role in conducting the proceeding in relation to ethics of persons holding political position and state official as well to monitor and also to monitor, evaluate, and prepare recommendations on the compliance with the Constitution, including considerations for amendment of the Constitution as deemed necessary. So you can see the Thai Ombudsman is very powerful now under the new Constitution. The Constitution, it just has been, wiped out. So you know that the event on the 22 May 2014, there were again a big change in our country when the National Council for Peace and Order, hereinafter I call NCPO in short. The NCPO took this power over the government in ruling the country. So many of you asked about this question on the coffee break. So we will explain to you later on. So the NCPO took this power over the government in ruling the country. Then the 2007 Constitution was dissolved. In fact, the Ombudsman established from such Constitution should be abolished accordingly. But we have the special order from the NCPO to continue. So we still have the power to do, the thing that we have done before. So we are empowered to continue the work. As the Chief Ombudsman of Thailand mentioned before, I also want to thanks to our colleagues to send email to us concerning about our status. Let me ensure you that the Thai Ombudsman is still exists and its power with full roles and duty to protect the Thai people from public maladministration. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic I have been assigned is Ombudsman function to enhance social trust and quality of public service. From my point of view, I have my homework to share with you how the Ombudsman enhance social trust and how Ombudsman enhance quality of public service. Let me first start with the issue of public service first. As mentioned to you earlier, that the Ombudsman has the power to investigate complaints on maladministration and unfair practices of the public authorities. It is therefore unavoidable to involve public authority and services in which the Ombudsman has to do fact-finding investigation, leading to the recommendation to solve suffering people from public maladministration. However, before sharing with you how Ombudsman function enhance public service, let me firstly touch on some existing circumstances. According to complaints received on public administration, which reflect the quality of public services as the following. Number one, a delay in response to deliver services to people. And in giving information to Ombudsman, which result in a delay in providing discretion to solve the problem for people. Number two, a discrimination of providing services and decision making. Many cases, public officials have imposed in accordance with the law, and the law or regulation give them some room for discretion. It happened that the people who know or have personal relation with the official are imposed with less penalty than people who are otherwise. Number three, lack of communication and or communicate with the people impolitely without courtesy. We found out that officials have done the things right as regulated, but they didn't try to or didn't know how to explain with the people concerning the cases they are interacted, especially when those cases affected the cost and benefit of the people. Number 4, official corrupt, misbehave, and or abuse of power. It is true that public sector is composed of officials from different backgrounds. They may good or bad. However, what and how they have done always generate impact positively or negatively in one way or the other. Number 5, outdated of law and regulations in response to the current situation of the society and the new public management. This happened because law, decrees, acts, ministerial procedure, etc. that public sector always apply for this policy implication or routine work have been announced or proclaimed since a long time ago in the past. Meanwhile, the Constitution has been recently proclaimed and overruled such outdated laws, regulations in many issues, which including the issue of human rights concerning the affect daily life of the citizen in doing things in equal manner, as the Chief Ombudsman of Thailand has mentioned about the judge. Ladies and gentlemen, the above mentioned phenomena are some of the issues that affect the quality and quantity of public service. As an ombudsman, it is a duty to solve the problem and try every possibility to gear for the enhancement and improvement of the public services. Various mechanisms have been launched through the course of our work to ensure that good quality of public service supported people with equal and fair public practices. Practices in one environment may not be compatible in another environment. Nevertheless, we may be able to share what we try to build up mechanism to facilitate an ombudsman work on enhancement of public services for instances. 1. We established network with a lawyer council as well as the Department of Legal Aid and Civil Rights Protection of the Office of the Attorney General in every province throughout the country as alternative channel for the people to have legal advice or submit complaint to the Ombudsman. Because Ombudsman office located only in Bangkok, not having provincial or regional office outside Bangkok. This can save the traveling expense of the people who has to come to Bangkok to filing the complaint. In addition, the Ombudsman also provides the telephone free number 1676 throughout the country for the people to consult and lodge their verbal complaints, which may consider urgent and not complicated in substance. 2. We also sign an agreement with some infrastructure unit that often have daily contact with people, and hence daily problem with the people, such as the provincial and metropolitan water work, provincial and metropolitan electricity authority, police department, telephone organization of Thailand, Ministry of Interior, to solve the problem by phone, not necessarily to send an official letters at all times to those agencies. This is because we view that a lot of written complaints against those agencies on their daily operation face some delay before coming to the Ombudsman. That means people have to take burden waiting for late problem solving, which sometimes is easily solved by the telephone conversation. By that time, public authorities were familiar with and stick to official letters before further action. However, we think there is a room for making it better. We therefore convince them to sign an agreement with the Ombudsman to settle some problem for people by telephone conversation without waiting for an official letter from the Ombudsman, but regard that telephone call as the official contact. After that, the Ombudsman submit a recommendation to Cabinet suggests that this idea should be applied to other remaining public authority. The Cabinet agree with Ombudsman and provide a Cabinet resolution that all public authorities have to comply with the recommendation of the Ombudsman by the Ombudsman. This is important because the Cabinet resolution is regarded as the order of the government to the public authority. Those who violate the Cabinet resolution are considered disciplinary offense. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have found from the investigation process is that the source of delay, discrimination, corruption, misbehavior, abuse of power, as well as lack of service mind come from deficiency of the public mind and ethics of the authorities. The Ombudsman therefore not only guarantee the previously mentioned mechanism, but also launch a preventive measure in promoting the ethics of the public sector. We, Ombudsman, have signed the Memorandum of Understanding with other three organizations, namely the National Anti-Corruption Commission, the Senate, and the Political Development Council to join hand in hand promoting and enforcing the ethic proceeding of a person who holding political position and state officials. Outreach program and intake clinic are also initiated on regular basis to enhance the people in upcountry and remote areas to be aware of their rights on public service utility and their rights to complain. We have done on-site fact-finding investigation for the assurance of perfect information and evidences at the most possible way in order that Ombudsman can make discretion in timely and fair manner to all. Ladies and gentlemen, what I have highlighted may share with you some idea what and how Ombudsman function enhance quality of public service. To me, the quality of public service is able to create social trust in public administration. What Ombudsman has done on the enhancing public quality can count as well at the same time that the Ombudsman is strengthening social trust both in public sector and the Ombudsman instill itself. These issues are interrelated. In addition, the Ombudsman has been focusing on SEFA called CFA value in our working process so that trust can be ensured and enhanced. I would explain a little bit more about CFA. CFA is S stands for service, E stands for efficiency, F stands for fairness, and the last one, A, stands for accountability. So for the first one, S, service, we and our staff are committed to service mind. In dealing with all parties concerned, we also provide various channels to serve the public who would like to lodge a complaint, such as verbal complaint to the telephone number 1676 hotline, toll free throughout the country. by phone and also by email, walk into our office, and through our provincial network, such as Lawyer Council and provincial and province office of the Attorney General. E, that means efficiency. Complaint lodged to the Ombudsman have to be taken with care, courtesy, independence, and timely fashion. Complainants will be informed about progress while the investigation process is under the way. F, fairness. Every complainant always seek fairness when lodging a complaint to the Ombudsman. We understand them and try to keep balance with reliable evidence, since the public authority also needs fairness from the Ombudsman discretion. Fairness in our sense therefore means fairness for all parties concerned. A, accountability. Although the Ombudsman is an independent organization, it is our duty to be accountable to relevant bodies. We submit a report to the Parliament by the end of March every year. Our budget balance is subject to be audited by the Auditor General. We hence provide information relevant and ready to be accountable as appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, we think all friends and colleagues in our Ombudsman community are more professional and experienced than us. However, if we may share working experience, we would like to say that being Ombudsman is not an easy task, but challenging. Our work cannot only rely on power provided by the law. Legitimacy is a necessary condition, but not sufficient. Fairness and ethics in governance is also higher priority. This brings the challenge to how we can fulfill and balance this to an acceptable level for all parties. The Ombudsman is certainly complaint-centered, but not anti-administration. This is always controversial. We have to equilibrium in such a way that all stakeholders agree to comply with the Ombudsman non-punishable recommendation without delay or suspicion of the government standard. What we learn is that we have to contact all parties with respect and persuade them to make network and a part of the problem-solving system, not so isolate them and handle the case with care and understanding. We do not just try to write a report to record specific maladministration to disclose who is right or who is wrong. Instead, we try to specify what is right and what is wrong and how we can solve the problem together. The public authority are convinced that they would feel grateful and admirable to the public if they have such problem been solved. To our experiences in doing so, we never have to write a report to complain to the Parliament that we do not have cooperation from the public authority. Ladies and gentlemen, we have learned that sometimes full power cannot solve every problem. Power for the Ombudsman is necessary, but not sufficient condition. We therefore apply our power with high touch culture through the course of our work, so that our non-binding recommendation can be complied, and that we can really reach the enhancements of social trust and quality of public service. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siracha Charenpanit, for your really interesting speech and the inspiring thoughts and the wide-ranging view to the Thailand Ombudsman institution. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue with the next speaker, Mr. Andre Marin. Welcome.
Thank you.
He's the Ombudsman of Ontario, and he's going to tell us something about the advancement of investigative tools for capacity enhancement of Ombudsman as a watchdog. Andre Marin has a long-standing experience with the International Ombudsman Institute and in sharing knowledge with the International Ombudsman community. Many of you will be familiar with his training course, Sharpening Your Teeth, an advanced training course he has delivered numerous times over the world. Mr. Marin served as North American Regional Vice President of the IOI, and he holds degrees in both civil and common law from University of Ottawa. I would like to hand the floor over to you, Mr. Marin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's really an honor to be here to present, and I would like to thank the ACRC for the invitation, for allowing me to participate in this panel this morning. I'd like to say it's still July 1st in Canada. There's 13-hour time difference. And I'd like to wish everybody happy Canada Day, because July 1st is Canada Day. Yes. We officially turn 147 years old today. That's how young we are. Now, the Office of the Ontario Ombudsman operates from Toronto, Canada. And I'm sure as soon as I said Toronto, Canada, I know the question you want to ask me. Does Rob Ford really exist? Yes, he does. I think one of the most important things that we can do as ombudsmen to do our jobs properly is continually demonstrate your value. Demonstrate your value by telling the people the work you do, by publicizing it, so that citizens know that there is a value in having an ombudsman's office. It doesn't matter if your office is 200 years old, 40 years old, as mine is, or 20 years old, as is the office here that we're celebrating in Korea. We must continually redefine and reinvent ourselves to be relevant. I know a little bit about that because when I became the Ombudsman of Ontario in 2005, I'd been appointed by the legislative branch of government to find out that the executive branch of government wanted to eliminate the office, secretly eliminate the office. So one of the first things I received as I became Ombudsman was a recommendation by the executive to the Premier of Ontario to eliminate the office. So I've been appointed by Parliament, but government wanted to get rid of the office. So I thought that this was a perfect opportunity to reinvent the office, make it more modern, more robust, more relevant to people's lives. Ontario has a population of 13.5 million citizens. It is the largest of Canada's 10 provinces. Our office oversees over 500 different government agencies, from the agency that gives out birth certificate to death certificate, driver's license, to the funeral boards, to the Ministry of Health, Crown corporations, etc. We operate with a budget of $12 million now, and we deal with over 27,000 complaints a year, of which 82% are resolved within 2 weeks. So how do we do it? It's a momentous task. We do it because we've reorganized the office for efficiency. We have a very rigorous triage process to determine which cases need a more robust or more intense kind of intervention, in which case can be resolved quickly. When you call the toll-free number to our office, it is a phone that is answered by an early resolution officer. About 9 out of 10 of them are lawyers, highly skilled, highly trained, able to resolve the case right away. As soon as they answer the phone, they're seized of the case. Unless, of course, the case requires a little more intense intervention, in which case it is bumped up to the investigation section. Out of the 27,000 cases we deal with annually, about 5 or 6 turn into systemic investigations, and those are conducted by the Special Ombudsman Response Team, which is a special unit within our office that deals exclusively with systemic issues. I can tell you that, without exception, since 2005, our systemic cases have touched every single citizen of Ontario, every single one of the 13.5 million. And that, of course, has demonstrated our value. And because we've demonstrated our value, we've made ourselves relevant. So nobody talks about abolishing the office anymore. In fact, quite the contrary. We just went through an election in Ontario, and the new government has pledged to extend our jurisdiction to the broader public service in Ontario, which includes municipalities, Rob Ford, universities, and school boards. Part of the success of our office has been to sharpen the teeth of our investigators, sharpen the approach of our cases. We follow a very rigorous methodology. Investigations are meticulously planned. When we conduct a systemic investigation, we identify discrete issues that we need to investigate, and we stay away from the others. We avoid what we call issue creep. Everything is planned using timelines. There's a lot of discipline in the work we do. We announce a case, we do an assessment, we announce it publicly, we tell the public this will be done in 6 months, and guess what? We do it within 6 months. When we conduct a systemic case, we record interviews, we review documents, and finally, when we make recommendations and findings based on evidence. Now, they tell people you should never buy someone a pet for Christmas. Because what happens if you buy a pet for Christmas or a birthday, that pet will most likely not survive in the house. They'll be turned over to authorities or to the pound or whatever. Well, I broke this year. I bought my wife not one pet at Christmas, but I bought her 2 German Shepherds. And that's one of them there, 2 weeks old. So quite the teeth for a 10-week-old German Shepherd, but it illustrates the point that you need to sharpen your teeth. Let me give you some examples of some of the systemic work we've done. We've done about 30 of those cases since 2005. The first one of the first that I want to talk to you about today is called the game of trust. And I want to point out to you that moral suasion for us starts with the report cover, the title, the graphic work, the illustrations, both on the cover and in the report. They say picture's worth 1,000 words. And we really believe that if people are going to read our reports, they have to be written in plain language, illustrated. People have to be drawn to the report. They have to be punchy, short. They have to read like a novel. The game of trust was our investigation of corruption in the lottery system in Ontario. It's an investigation about how the provincial government agency known as the Lottery Corporation of Ontario was allowing retailers selling lottery tickets to defraud the public of their winnings. So we published a report. We called it a game of trust. Following this report, the government fired the chief executive officer of the Lottery Corporation, fired the entire board of directors, and instituted a new system whereby there would be new checks and balances to prevent unscrupulous retailers from stealing the winnings of citizens. But what happened is citizens with winning tickets would show up to claim their winnings, and the retailer would steal it from them to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. The second example is an investigation that was mentioned earlier by Diane Welburn, an investigation that we conducted into beatings within the jail system in Ontario by prison guards against inmates, and the fact there was a code of silence among prison guards where beatings were not documented, inmates were not receiving medical attention, documentation was covered up, altered to protect each other, to protect one prison guard, and to solidify the brotherhood among prison guards, and to encourage violence on inmates. Just last week, I released our annual report, and I spoke about a case where an inmate slipped on the floor of a prison and broke his femur, the large bone in your leg. The prison guards, as well as the nurse, simply threw him in a jail with an ice pack, told him to take an aspirin, it'll feel better the next day. Things were not going very well, so ultimately he was sent to the hospital. They put him on a wheelchair, and they put the wheelchair down the staircase. So every time the wheelchair was going down the staircase, he would scream in pain. When he finally arrived at the hospital, they said he had a severely fractured femur. He had to undergo a lengthy operation that required a 3-week stay in hospital. Now, this case was good because it was captured by video. But in many cases we uncovered in the code, prison guards would take someone away from the camera where they would inflict violence, and then we would never be able to find out. So that's why we required a more aggressive intervention and investigation, which uncovered this culture of corruption within the prison system. We made several recommendations which were all accepted by the government, and already we're seeing some good progress. The third investigation we carried out that I want to share with you this morning, out of the 30 since 2005, is called the right to be impatient. Now, Ontario is often seen as very modern, progressive, rich part of Canada, of the world. And we investigated in 2005 the outdated screening of newborn babies in Ontario. We were only testing for 2 diseases which cause metabolic disorders. The World Health Organization at the time was recommending the testing of 29. The state of California did 92. In Ontario, we did 2. This was directly responsible for up to 25 baby deaths in Ontario every year. Also responsible for resulting in 25 severely disabled babies, disabilities they would suffer for life. There have been all these coroner's inquests, government internal investigations. The government was not interested in moving. It required the ombudsman to lead a major systemic investigation and basically to publish our report and embarrass the government to finally fix the problem. And I'm happy to report, as I speak to you today, that the Government of Ontario is now screening for over 30 different diseases at birth. As I think you may have noticed from, we've talked about all these before. I think you've seen that from what I've said so far, that an invisible ombudsman is an ineffective ombudsman. You have to be out there, demonstrating your value, publishing your reports, making your work accessible. We use technology very much to be able to maximize our footprint, to be out there. We have a very aggressive media strategy. Our news stories in Ontario reach millions of people. When we conducted our investigation into police abuse during the G20 summit in Ontario in 2010, it made it to page 5 of the New York Times. We have a very aggressive social media strategy. We have almost 24,000 followers on Twitter. If you're not following us yet, get on it. We have a very aggressive Facebook strategy. We update it several times a day. All my speaking engagements within Ontario are taped, recorded, and put on YouTube. And it's incredible the amount of coverage we do get. We take complaints online through email. We even have an iPhone app that you can download to complain. And we have an e-newsletter called The Watchdog that is followed by thousands of people. Now, our reports are a combination of a document of persuasion, one of logic, one of unassailable recommendations, findings based on evidence. What we try to do with our reports is, right from the beginning, keep them short, concise, have covers that tell the whole story by one cover. This is a case called A Vast Injustice. It's about a colon cancer drug called Avastin that is pretty well known throughout the world for treating colorectal cancer. In Ontario, we investigated why the government had arbitrary cutoffs for supporting Avastin. And we found that those cutoffs were unfair. We recommended that the government gets rid of those cutoffs. And we call the report A Vast Injustice, building in Avastin in the title of our report, A Vast Injustice. When we publish our reports, we are mindful of our audience. We ask ourselves, who's our audience here? You know, if you're doing newborn screening, your audience might be doctors that have been in the way for so many years, medical doctors who have godlike syndromes. Of course, doctors don't have that, right? Maybe it's the bureaucrats that are a blockade. You have to decide who's going to be your audience. What's the problem? I often say to people, my job is 10% law, 90% strategy. It's not good enough simply to just write a report. You've got to think, what is my strategy? And we use names, stories, photos, charts. We try to put a human face on the investigation. And I know a lot of us have limits regarding confidentiality. We never use people's names unless they consent to it. But to put a human face on a problem is a whole difference between getting a good response and a dry bureaucratic response. It's one of the reasons why we've brought a course that we teach around the world, which the chair the IOI Secretary General has mentioned in his introduction. It's called Sharpening Your Teeth. And we've brought this course in French and in English. We've taught it throughout Canada, the US, South America, Europe, Asia, Thailand, New Zealand. Never been to South Korea, but we've been in discussions over the year. We'd be happy to bring it to New Zealand, to South Korea. It's a course we give for free. Basically, it's a 3-day course. It expands on a lot of the themes I've talked about today. Again, it's about using strategy to demonstrate your value around the world. And however different our cultures or languages are, you'd be shocked to find out how similar the issues that we face. It really strikes me every time. I went to Africa, and I gave the course 3 days in English, followed by 3 days in French. And it was incredible because the African Anglophone countries and African Francophone countries have so many things in common without even knowing it. Anyways, I brought a lot of brochures of the course. I'll put them out tomorrow. If you're interested, keep it in mind. You know what? I was developing this presentation for today, which I've given similar presentations in the past. It struck me that all of this art of persuasion is really nothing new. It actually dates back to the time of Aristotle. You know, what did he tell us on rhetoric? Aristotle told us that the art of persuasion depends on ethos, pathos, and logos. And when you look at 2013 versus 300 BC, all these apply to the ombudsman world. Ethos is the credibility and character of the office, the history of your office, the impartiality, the demonstrated independence, the meticulous planning and documentation, being true to your word. You start investigation, all be done in 90 days, you do it in 90 days. You don't spread it out. Pathos is putting a human impact, a human face on the ombudsman's world. You know, when you have a bureaucrat in an ivory tower out there making executive decisions, you have to realize, or you have to convey to those bureaucrats that those decisions have a human impact. And that's what stirs people, galvanizes action. Finally, what Aristotle taught us, the third component of persuasion, is logos. It's appealing to facts, evidence, logic. Our reports go through numerous fact-checking. We share drafts with the organization under investigation to get feedback. The unassailable, documented facts, evidence, and logic of our argument. In the end, the moral suasion creates value in the ombudsman's work. Value produces credibility, produces more work. Since last year, we've had 37% increase in complaints, 37. We're soon going to have a huge increase in jurisdiction over the broader public service. My office of 87 may well be double, triple. But ultimately, our goal is singular. It is to provide better governance, better public policy. And that's the one thing that motivates me every day. Find us, follow us, watch us. We're on social media. This is all the information. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andre Marin, for your exciting and thought-provoking contribution and for your welcome sharpening your teeth training offer. Again, ladies and gentlemen, now we have the opportunity for questions and comments. Please raise your hand. Please, and would you be kind enough to tell us your name and the institution.
예, 안녕하십니까. 국민권익위원회 권영문 조사관입니다. 두 가지 질문을 드리고자 합니다. 먼저 고충민원을 효과적으로 해결하는 데는 두 가지 방법이 있다고 생각합니다. 먼저 신청된 민원을 조사해서 해결하는 사후적인 방법과 또 사회적인 이슈 분야 등 공공 갈등이라든가 이런 분야에 대해서 발생에 예상되는 사안에 대해서 사전에 예방적으로 하는 직권조사를 통해서 고충 민원을 해결할 수 있다고 생각합니다. 그러나 우리나라 옴부즈만의 경우는 대부분 사후적인 방법으로서 고충 민원을 이렇게 들어온 경우에 조사를 해서 처리를 하고 있는 실정입니다. 그렇다면은 캐나다나 태국의 경우는 고충 민원에 대해서 사전적인 직권조사 기능을 해서 처리하고 있는지, 실제 있다면은 어떤 방식으로 운영하고 있는지 궁금합니다. 두 번째 질문입니다. 현재 저희 대한민국 같은 경우에는 국가 옴부즈만인 국민권익위원회가 있고 지방 옴부즈만으로서 지방자치단체에 지방 옴부즈만이 있습니다. 국민권익위원회의 경우는 100여 명의 조사관들이 연간 3만 5천여 건의 고충 민원을 처리하고 있습니다. 현재 국민들 같은 경우에는 지방 옴부즈만이나 국가 옴부즈만에 민원을 제기할 수 있습니다만 대부분의 국민들은 사실상 국민권익위원회로 고충 민원을 크고 작든 작게는 개인의 사소한 고충 민원부터 대규모 집단 민원까지 권익위원회로 민원을 제기하고 있는 실정입니다. 따라서 사실상 지방 옴부즈만의 경우는 민원 처리가 극히 저조한 상황이라고 볼 수 있습니다. 그래서 제가 특히나 오늘 안드레 마린 온타리오주 옴부즈만께서도 오셨는데 캐나다의 경우는 지방 옴부즈만과 국가 옴부즈만과 관계에 있어서 선행적으로 지방 옴부즈만을 거쳐서 국가 옴부즈만에서 처리를 한다든가 아니면은 어떤 규모로서 민원 종류에 따라서 처리를 구분을 한다든가 하는 방법이 있는지 아니면은 그냥 신청이 들어온 대로 기관에서 처리를 하는 건지 그 부분에 대해서 궁금하고요. 또 조사관들의 고충 민원에 대한 조사 역량 개발을 위해서 어떤 교육을 어떻게 하고 있고 어떤 내용으로 하고 있는지 그 부분에 대해서도 궁금합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. There are two questions. First, how do you deal with ex-officio investigations to Ontario and Thailand too? And second, the role of the local investigator. Please.
Well, for the ex-official investigation, I think that we have the full power to investigate whether or not it will be in the official or ex-official officer, except one of them, for the anti-corruption, that we have the prescription about the time that what happened. If that happened a long time ago and it's under the law, that's run out of the prescription, we cannot do that. Otherwise, we can do all of them. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. So there were two questions, in fact. So the first one, we call them own motion, ex officio. Yes, we have the ability to conduct that in Ontario. But I have to tell you that I think my own opinion is the ombudsman community is often too obsessed with that power. I think our statutes are very flexible. They deserve broad, generous interpretation. And often, if there's an issue that we're interested in out there, out of the 27,000 complaints we get a year, we can often find one that raises it somehow, and therefore you have a complaint. I can tell you in the last 10 years or 9.5 years I've been the Ombudsman of Ontario, we've only done one ex officio or own motion case, and it's the lottery case, because we had no complaints. But normally, if your office is getting tens of thousands of complaints, there's usually room to ground an investigation on one of those complaints. So I don't think that it's a really big deal. Certainly with the volume we're having, I don't have to go out and look for cases. We've got enough to keep us busy. The second part of your question, there are 3 levels of government in Canada. One is the local government, secondly, the provincial government, and thirdly, the federal government. I am the Ombudsman of Ontario, which is the provincial level. There is no Ombudsman of general jurisdiction federally. My colleague Howard Sapers is here, is the correctional investigator, deals with penitentiaries, but there's no broad Ombudsman of general jurisdiction. One had been proposed in the late 70s and didn't go anywhere. Coming back to Ontario, there is only one local government ombudsman, and it's for the City of Toronto because the province forced the city to have one. But there will be a legislation introduced provincially to give us authority over all municipal government shortly. There are, believe it or not, 444 local governments in Ontario. It's going to be a massive undertaking. As soon as I get jurisdiction, I would foresee that local governments will wake up and perhaps start to create offices to keep the issues local. And certainly I don't have an issue with that. As Ombudsman, you want to be an office of last resort. So pushing issues locally, if issues can be resolved locally, to everyone's satisfaction, more power to them. As far as training goes, we do our own training in-house, very similar training that we bring on the road. And I want to also say we also offer it internationally in Toronto every January, and we are offering it again in January 2015. So we do our training in-house, we bring in guests, and it's been very successful so far.
Thank you very much. More questions and or comments, please.
국민권익위원회 직원 김명화라고 합니다. 캐나다 온타리오주 앙드레 마린 옴부즈만께 질문을 좀 드리고 싶습니다. 먼저 이제 그 캐나다 온타리오주 같은 경우에는 직권 조사권이 이제 부여되어 있고요. 아주 그 강력한 그 옴부즈만의 그 기능을 수행하고 있는 것으로 그렇게 알고 있습니다. 먼저 이제 그 체계적 조사, 그 소트라고 하는 것을 말씀을 해주셨는데요. 지금 2005년 이후에 지금까지 한 34건 정도 그 솔트라는 체계적 조사에 의해서 사건을 해결하신 걸로 그렇게 말씀을 들었습니다. 그렇다면 이렇게 체계적 조사 사건으로 끌고 가는 그 신청된 어떤 그 민원에 대해서 아니면 직권조사에 대해서 이런 체계적 조사로 조사를 끌고 가는 어떤 기준이 있다면 거기에 대해서 설명해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그리고 두 번째로는 이렇게 체계적 조사를 진행함에 있어서 어떤 그런 외부적인 어떤 그런 압력이라든가 아니면 피조사기관에서의 어떤 그 반항, 거부라고 합니까? 이렇게 거부라든가 그런 경험이 있으면 좀 소개해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그리고 체계적 조사로 진행을 하는 과정에서 또 혹시 그 실패한 사례가 있다면 그것을 소개를 좀 해주시고 또 그 실패한 사례에 좀 핵심적인 사유들이 됐던 것들이 어떤 것들이 있었는지 설명해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Thank you very much for your interesting question. Please, Mr. Marin.
Yes, thanks. We, in the course Sharpening Your Teeth, we spend half a day going through the criteria, and we have an exercise where the students are asked to identify the systemic investigation based on a scenario that we give students. But in 10 words or less, let me answer your question. We do a lot of field work before we announce a systemic investigation. We do a lot of field work, and we always try to find the smoking gun. Okay, the case that is so obvious but that the government is so close to it that they don't see the solution. You know, whether it's newborn screening, when you have babies dying, and the government is testing for 2 tests when the World Health Organization is recommending 29. It's a no-brainer. It's a smoking gun. Why aren't we there? You know, during the G20, we investigated the government passing legislation to give the Toronto police the ability to conduct arbitrary detentions. Well, we have a constitution in Canada that says you can't do that. Again, a smoking gun. Our investigation of violence by prison guards against inmates. Our field work before we announced it showed that these injuries were not documented. We had broken bones that were never made it in the reports, collusion. So there's always issues out there that are so obvious, and we're always on the hunt for them. Right now we're investigating hydroelectricity in Ontario. We had a few dozen complaints last year. Suddenly, we have 600 complaints, all about unfair billing of customers, unintelligible bills, huge bank withdrawals overnight, lack of customer service. Again, to us, really a smoking gun. I mean, it's run by the government. It should have public service attached to it. We announced our investigation at 600 complaints. Now we have over 8,000 in a few months. So the first key is to find a theme through your informal field work that shows that, there's a problem here that nobody seems to get. Then once we find that theme, we identified 2 or 3 discrete sub-issues. The goal isn't to reinvent the wheel. The goal is to find the 2 weakest link within the theme. And then it's to stick to it, not to start an investigation and then allow issue creep to get in. Oh, we started doing this. Let's go this way, and let's go that way, and let's look at this now, and let's look at that. Next thing you know, you have an unmanageable workload. So you isolate sub-themes within a smoking gun. And we've been able to do that very successfully since 2005. It's part of what we teach, and it works. It works over all the agencies. Your second part of the question was, do we experience resistance? I'm happy to say that we never experience resistance. When we started this kind of work, people were saying, you're going to scare people off. No one will ever return your phone calls. But quite the contrary, because of the very high public profile of the office, when we call a government employee or an agency, we get our calls returned right away. And so there's no issues of cooperation whatsoever. But of course, we have a very robust statute. If anyone does not cooperate with our office, that is an act punishable by jail. That's in our statute. So that helps. There has never been a prosecution in 40 years, but the fact we have that, plus the credibility and the profile, means we get good cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just in time. Maybe one very last question. So, very last question, please, colleague.
Just a simple one. Mr. Marin, I would like to know how is the Ombudsman Ontario do for a preventive role in the preventive maladministration process? Thank you.
Well, I think the key to our systemic investigation is that find out what led to these problems, whether it's the G20 newborn screening, make recommendations to prevent these things from happening again. Our systemic work is not only geared to fix a problem that affects a lot of people, but it's geared to preventing these problems from happening again. The second thing we do is we are very vocal on legislation introduced by government. If we think that it's regressive, if we think the legislation is not progressive, we usually make submissions to Parliament. So those are the 2 ways by which we ensure that we are preventative and not just reactive to complaints.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, please join me in sharing our appreciation to the panel speakers. They gave us a really wide-ranging view of the roles and challenges of ombudsmen to meet the needs of our time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. With that, we will close today's morning session. I would like to extend thanks to all the chairs, speakers, and the audience for the active participation. We have prepared a buffet lunch in 2 different places. For international participant and invited guests, please go to the National Press-Center, which is located on the opposite side of this room. For all the other participants, please join us on the 19th floor at Meihwa Hall. To go to the 19th floor, you have to use the elevator, and our staff will escort you to the luncheon. Please enjoy your lunch, and we will begin the afternoon session in this room again at 1:30 p.m. Thank you and enjoy it. 참석자 여러분 아이디 뒤쪽을 한번 확인해 주시면 거기 오찬 장소가 표시되어 있습니다. 그래서 여기 19층이나 20층인지 확인하시고 장소로 이동해 주시면 되실 것 같습니다. 감사합니다.